Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our live Q&A call. I'm Steve Porcaro, and I'd like to welcome all of our participants and our guests. And with me today is Barry. We're going to be jumping right in, and basically, this is our end of the year Q&A. We talked about taking a break for the holidays and giving us a chance to recoup and recover from the year. It's been a very interesting year for everybody, but we've been doing this now for about 3 months, our weekly calls, and I want to take a quick moment, talk about our goals for today, our housekeeping, and then really what our, again, a couple tips that we'll be sharing. So right up front, we're going to be talking about using this software, Zoom. For those of you who haven't used Zoom before, there should be a taskbar on the bottom of your screen if you're using your computer. Very similarly on a tablet or a smartphone, you can chat, you can raise your hand, or you can enter a question into the question box. That's the easiest way to communicate. If you're on the phone, it's a little bit tougher. We haven't figured out yet how to raise your hand or submit a question on the phone, but you could email it to us, uh, question or info@salesplusmvp.com. We're trying to monitor the email as we go along. We'll figure that out. And then very simply, if for some reason we get disconnected, just call right back in. Doesn't happen, but in the Northeast up here in Connecticut, we're having it. This is the first time I've ever heard frozen rain, frozen sleet, and what's the other thing that's frozen that's coming down? There was like three hail, frozen hail. It's like it's the weird thing. We're getting this crazy thing, and sometimes it does affect the call when we have blizzards and high winds. But for the moment, you get disconnected, jump off. If you're driving or if you're in a meeting and you have to jump off, no worries. We'll be sending out the recording usually in 24 hours or so if you want to listen. And then really our big goal here is trying to share a tip or two so you can leave here and implementing some idea, something you learned for yourself over the next few weeks, few months. Our really our format is designed to answer your questions. We do get questions emailed into us on a regular basis. Barry and I were just talking about a lot of the questions that we received over the last month or so have been focused on some of the changes on LinkedIn, and this whole show, I guess it's a show, but it's really this whole broadcast started originally. We started doing live LinkedIn presentations, and we thought it'd be a good idea to take a few minutes and kind of talk about what LinkedIn has gone through over the last year, maybe a LinkedIn year in review. There's a lot of information that we could share with you, but we're going to focus on the highlights and how it affects the groups. So with that being said, we also want to take a quick moment to do a quick intro for those of you who don't know us. And I know Barry and I have met many of you online while you've joined the groups, you've been on other calls. But for people who are new, in a nutshell, I started these groups December 2008, a lot of the medical device groups, when I was looking to network. And like a lot of people, I fell into LinkedIn, not realizing the power and what it could do. But I quickly realized it would allow me to stay connected with the network of people over a 25-year career, my military service working in the operating room, and then my medical device career, realizing that other than just an email and picking up the phone, LinkedIn, we didn't, really know what it was back then. The beginning of social media professionally allowed us to stay in touch with people. So we started using these groups, and it allowed us to stay connected with people. And what happened is when I left the medical device field in 2005 and I started my business, I started using LinkedIn to connect and reconnect with people I worked with in the orthopedic industry. And I spent about 20 years in the orthopedic industry, basically working on the neck down with trauma, sports medicine, total joints. I did some spine, biologics, DME, hand, lower extremities, really the gambit. And I took a lot of that experience and everything I learned in the operating room, and I really turned it into coaching and training and consulting. So it's been an exciting ride. And along the way, I bumped into Bari, and I'm going to let Bari share her journey, similar but different. So, Bari, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay. Well, Steve is right. My journey is almost the polar opposite of his. I fell into the medical device field by mistake, almost. I had been working in skincare and aesthetics and working as a trainer in retail, and decided to make the switch to a more corporate role. And I thought maybe working in plastic surgery or dermatology would make sense. And I went to apply for a position at a doctor's office because it said surgeon. And to my surprise, it was ophthalmology. And so I came to medical devices from the small business end. I started out in private practice, and then one of the vendors whose devices we used hired me to work with doctors on the East Coast, teaching them how to consult with their patients and basically working as a business advisor within individual medical practices. And both of the companies that I worked for were startups. So that's how I ended up in the medical device field. And how Steve and I connected was after a layoff, and LinkedIn was still in its infancy. I had been relocated from the West Coast to the East Coast. So I knew literally almost nobody. And I said, well, I better start networking because, you know, I need to meet people. I need to find a new position. And I joined the medical device sales group. And when Steve started the group, there was only about 3,000 people in it. And I asked to join the group, and he sent me a response saying, great to meet you. I'd love to get on a call and learn more about you and understand what you're looking for and how I can help you. And I was flabbergasted because nobody does that. And it turned out that we had a really great connection. We kind of filled in each other's gaps. And because my specialty was the smaller side and more individual relationships in private practice, he said, you know what, I could use your help. And thus our business relationship was born, and we've been together ever since. I call him my LinkedIn husband.
That's true. It's been a long time. This is kind of like our anniversary month too, right?
Yeah.
Almost when we started. So I don't know the exact date, but I think it was December 3rd, the email, but it's in our record somewhere. So LinkedIn's been very interesting. So what we wanted to do was talk a little bit about LinkedIn and, you know, some of the things that have changed over the last year, or at least updates. I mean, one of the things that's happening is people are really, on one hand, people are joining LinkedIn all the time. It's still growing, and yet if you read some of the information out there, LinkedIn as a company has been stagnant, has been struggling to really make inroads. So there's some recent articles out there. We wanted to share a couple key tips that we've gleaned over the last 6 months, takeaways. It's almost the good, the bad, and the ugly of what's happening with LinkedIn. But yet, on one hand, it's still a great tool that allows us to meet people. And between Barry and I, we're meeting people on LinkedIn all the time. And it's a great way for everyone to help each other. Introductions, networking for job opportunities, for business opportunities, for all types of things. So I wanted to basically start a little bit with the LinkedIn profile with a couple things that we've gleaned. Here's some quick tips on what probably good recommendations, kind of default recommendations from a 50,000 foot view. I mean, sometimes people get on LinkedIn, and at this point, there's enough tutorials, there's enough webinars out there, but there's still a lot of things that have changed and evolved. Sometimes you'll look at the LinkedIn help and it's out of date. They'll put an update in and you'll go to the help section and it's out of date. So we could take a few minutes to share a few things. Barry, do you want to start? You want me to start with a couple things that I've... Okay. So one of the biggest things that people will run into is, hey, I met Mike online and we're not first connections, but I want to reach out to him. Or we are first connections, or Steve, our group manager, said, hey, reach out to Barry, I'll give you an introduction. Well, one of the things that LinkedIn allows you to do now is put your contact information on your screen and show a contact button, so people can see your contact information and reach out to you. The whole purpose of LinkedIn is to network. And if you're inside a group, you can set that up so people in the group can click the contact or more information contact button and send you an email, pick up the phone. Now, it's kind of interesting. LinkedIn wants you to spend money to send an email, and that's their business. I don't hold it against them. But one of the things you can do is update your contact information and make sure that it's set up so people can access it. Before, you had to be a first connection to do that, and they basically stepped back a little bit. So you can control the information in the groups. Barry, have you used that, or have you run into that in the last few months?
What I actually found helpful was the 3 dots on people's profiles, because speaking to the issue of having to pay to contact people, that's not actually true. You just have to know how to beat the system. And under those 3 dots, there's a lot of options. Now, normally when you visit somebody's profile, it just has a connect button. And if you click on connect, it sends them, hey, join my network. That's it, plain and simple. And they want people to do that. But under the 3 dots, there's the option to personalize the invitation. So that is your place if you want to contact somebody within LinkedIn for whatever reason. If you don't want to expose your contact information, you can still reach out to them by using the personalized invite button. And they used to have a limitation where you couldn't do an @.com in the body of your summary or your headline, but that's the limitation that they removed, allowing you to show your personal information so that people can contact you. So those 2 things are making it easier for people to contact you and not having to pay to send an invitation with some kind of a note attached to it by using the extra options under the 3 dots and personalizing your invite.
Yep, thank you, Barry. And the interesting thing is, there are times when you just want to reach out to somebody to get their advice and counsel. It'd be great to connect to everybody in the world, but usually before I connect to them, I send an email and ask them, hey, is there anything we can do to help each other? Sometimes people will connect to me because I'm managing and running the group. And that's great, because I want to be able to connect with people and refer or direct them or introduce them to people. But usually, I just want to have a conversation sometimes with people to get to know them, right? It's that first date. And sometimes it's a little too intimate to connect without having some type of email, conversation, text messaging. So part of it is you have to find your own comfort level. But the tools are out there. To Barry's point, we have to, I don't want to say work a little, but there's so many ways now to configure your profile. You really have to dig down because they've made a lot of tweaks. And the good thing is you're not going to break anything if you go hunting and pecking. There's a lot of settings when you go to your account settings under privacy, under communication, that I would check, especially at the end of the year, because they've changed some of the settings on how you show up, when you can be contacted, who can contact you, the way you show your profile. Are you anonymous? Are you hidden? Do you want people to know your name when you look at their profile? These are things sometimes we forget when we're on LinkedIn. And if you're hunting and pecking and looking around, again, play with the settings and think about, what are you trying to do on LinkedIn? If you're looking at jobs, if you're trying to connect with people, you may want to adjust your settings to show your information, at least on the background. Going to your profile, there are other settings that they've changed about allowing you to, under your experience sections, to move your comments. That's one of the things, excuse me, your comments, your experience, right? You can take your jobs now and place them in order by dragging them when you go into the edit section. Sometimes you may want to minimize certain jobs or experiences and bring something important right up to the front of your profile. They're almost like building blocks where you can take those and drag and move them to your profile. It's very nice. The other thing that's very nice is that you can add media to your profile, PDFs, video. When I'm working with clients who are transitioning or entrepreneurs, I recommend that they create a video of themselves, almost either an introductory video, and put it on their profile, and use that in a way to build a relationship with people. And the other big thing that, and again, this wasn't common knowledge, but the banner on the back of your picture on your profile is a great opportunity for you to get your personal message out. You'll notice here on the slide, we talk about having it marketing oriented, right? You want your LinkedIn profile to be focused on talking about your feature and benefits, why people want to do business with you or want to hire you or want to work for you, right? What's your philosophy? What's your culture? What's the message you're trying to get across? Don't be afraid to use that space. I mean, it's a lot of space up there on that banner when people are looking at your profile to get that message across. So the funny part is, on one hand, on occasion, I'll pay for some of LinkedIn services. I'll buy a premium account because I need some of these services for maintenance in the groups once a year. But 9 times out of 10, I have a free account and I can accomplish a lot of what I'm trying to do just using the tools that LinkedIn gives you on the profile. Barry, anything you want to add to that? I know we're kind of talking about a lot of topics here.
Yes, and actually it's to the earlier suggestion of having your contact information visible. I was fortunate enough to have somebody be able to manipulate the background photo that I chose for my banner on my LinkedIn profile. And it has the company name, the company phone number, and a slogan, and the picture itself speaks to the fact that I'm a relationship builder. It's a man and a woman shaking hands. So it doesn't have to be a picture of you. It could be a picture of what you want to accomplish. And don't be afraid to use your photography editing software to put your contact information even on your background photo if that's something that you'd be open to doing. I have a work email address. I didn't have a problem putting that up there. And I think that's also a great way to show that you're tech savvy and to make yourself open and create the perception that you're trying to create, which is that you're an open networker without actually having to be an open networker. It gives people a way to get in touch with you. Instead of putting up barriers, you're creating openings.
Yep, nicely put. Thank you, Barry. So the other thing I want to do before we open it up to questions, it's the end of the year, the holiday season. A lot of people are getting ready, and in some ways, we're preparing and prepping. Uh, One of the interesting things that I think sometimes gets underutilized, and you'll see other people doing this at times, writing articles, sharing information is a great way, but the articles are very nice. If you have information, if you can write it as an article or share it as an article, it will allow people to see a little bit more about what you're offering, what your company's offering, what you would like to offer a company. And I think it's one of these tools that gets underutilized. It's very interesting that people think they have to be in a position to write an article. Do you have to be an influencer? Do you have to be a decision maker? Everyone has some great experiences professionally and personally that they can share, and that the LinkedIn article place is a great way to do that. And it also shows up on your profile. Your activity shows up. There's all types of things that you're doing on LinkedIn in a positive way that you can show on your profile.
And I'd like to add something to that quickly.
Sure, go ahead.
LinkedIn calls it an article, but it's not, it doesn't, you don't have to view it as an article. It is something that quote unquote gets published. But what that means is the difference between an update and an article is that an update shows up in your connections feed or to the public if you have it set to public, and then it moves down and disappears. And the only way someone would ever be able to find that would be scrolling through all of your activity or scrolling through your previous posts and visiting your profile. When you publish something as an article, it's almost like it's a highlighted status update. It stays in an easy to find place on your profile and it's permanently visible, as opposed to going all the way down to the bottom. Your articles have the little dots at the bottom, so article 1 is here, and then article 2 you can swipe left, and you can see all somebody's articles all in one place. So if you're trying to position yourself as an expert, highlight one of your skills, magnify one of your achievements, the place to do that instead of an update is by writing an article. But again, think of it more like an essay, right? It's just something where you can keep it in your library instead of it being ephemeral and something that goes down to the bottom as time goes by. The articles are the way to keep it front and center on your profile.
Yeah, thank you, Barry. I mean, it's an interesting, and you talked about swiping. That either works on your phone, tablet, and if you have a touchscreen computer. So, but the interesting thing is there's a lot of information out there, and it doesn't hurt. Sometimes we're overloaded with information, but I think when you're trying to build a relationship and to let people get to know you, or sharing information so people can build a relationship and learning about them, the more information you can share with them is great. The last interesting thing that before we take questions is, I don't know, Barry, about a month ago, LinkedIn added a section about adding events to the website, and it's to your profile. And it's interesting when you think back. If you've been on it for a while, you might have remembered when you were able to do this. But when LinkedIn was purchased by Microsoft, they depreciated some of the tools that we used to have on our profiles. And it's funny to come back and see they put a little bit of a scheduling event. So if you're having a meeting, a networking meeting, a work meeting, a client meeting, a get together, and you want to invite people out there, there's a tool out there on the home page on the left on your computer. I don't know where it is on the phone yet because I haven't tried to do it. I suffer from fat finger syndrome. I don't do a lot on my phone, even though I have a nice big screen, just because I can't type. So what happens is, adding events, if you have something coming up and you want people to know about it, you can write a post about it, but the tool, the algorithm that shows your event is a little bit more powerful and it gets the message out. So it's interesting. Over the last month, as group owners and managers, moderators, there's some tools that LinkedIn are slipping in behind the scenes, and they're letting us know. So we think this is a good sign. LinkedIn is trying to evaluate and give us tools to help us develop those relationships, that networking, professional networking experience that we're all trying to get. So again, ongoing. We'll come back to this. You know, every couple months we'll probably share as much information when we have quarterly updates, if not sooner. If something comes out that's going to impact the group members, we'll share that in a post and share it with everybody to keep everyone up to date. But for the most part, we have a few minutes. I'd like to open it up to some questions. Again, we have some questions that came in via email, but if you're on the call and you want to submit a question, you can use the chat box or the Q&A box to submit a question. If not, you know, we'll take it from there. But this would be a good time if anyone would like to submit a question. We don't have a clock. This is not Jeopardy, unless Barry wants to do a tone. The latest question, while we're waiting for people, and again, you can submit a question anytime. The interesting question came in about job search settings on your profile. There are people who are transitioning on LinkedIn, and they want companies to know, recruiters to know that they're looking for jobs. And again, everything's transitioning with LinkedIn. If you go to your account settings and you go to job search, there's a whole section there on the type of jobs you can look for, what industries, what positions, who you want to find. Because a lot of the companies, the recruiters and LinkedIn, make their money with people who are transitioning. Monster.com is still out there. Indeed is still out there. LinkedIn is trying to be a player out there. So they do offer you some tools for free. And then, again, depending on your need and your situation, they do offer packages. And again, depending on your unique situation, if you have a question about that, if you want to reach out to us, you'll see there's a link on the bottom of the screen. If you want to carry this conversation on offline, if you want to ask a question in confidence, feel free to reach out to us. Barry and I are more than happy to connect with you as well as answer your questions. I mean, one of the things that has been helpful to us is the more we help other people in the group, the more that comes back, and it really becomes a win-win. And Barry and I have been very fortunate over the years to meet a lot of people online across the country and sometimes the world. So LinkedIn is a great tool. You're going to get out of it what you put into it, especially going into 2020. All right, so it looks like we don't have many questions coming in, and it's the bottom of the hour, and I think it's been a long year for everybody, so I think this is a cue for us to kind of wrap it up. Barry, any closing thoughts before we say goodbye?
No, I just want to wish everybody a happy and healthy holiday season, and I'm looking forward to all the new things that are going to happen in 2020.
All right, thank you, everyone. My name's Steve Porcaro, along with Barry Rubin. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next year. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you.